our final question is always the one that kind of trips people up. So brace yourself, or maybe you'll have like you're already ready. If in like 40 years there's a theater textbook, and in your case, theater film textbook, so you even got a bigger textbook, and there was a rule kids had to study with your name on it. They had to memorize this rule, put it on test. What is that rule?
Oh, it would be rule number 1. Nice speaking with you. Good night.
No, you gotta tell us what rule 1 is.
And scene.
We're actually going to start with what we call our Take 5. These are 5 questions we ask everybody. They're way open-ended, way free-form, and it just kind of gets like the ball rolling in people's heads. So our first question is, what's something that turned you off about the theater? You just don't like, it's not your bag, it's just something that has always bugged you.
The phrase amateur theater makes me as comfortable as the phrase amateur surgery. I don't understand. But it bites my butt that people feel like they can just sort of, hey, let's do a show, or, let's charge all of our friends money to see an under-rehearsed, badly produced. I don't get it. I've never understood that, and I hate it. I blame society, of course. But I'm gonna pay someone, especially in this culture. I'm gonna pay someone for my health care if I possibly can, if I have the money. And I feel the same way about all art, but certainly theater.
I get that.
We get that. That's why we started calling some community or just nonprofit theater bivocational artistry, because they had down here, at least in South Jersey, we found some community theater that was very professional level,
but they need the day job, and so it's
not about whether you have a day job or not.
Yeah,
it's
most actors I know who are on Broadway have other jobs.
Yeah,
exactly.
The starting salary for a Broadway actor is only $1,000 a week, which sounds like a lot, but not if you're living in New York City. It's only $50,000 a year. Yeah, it's insane. So they're teachers. I knew one that was doing a high-level Wall Street human resources, boutique. They do all kinds of other stuff. But you got to pay the artists. That's the bottom line. And I guess every once in a while people get together and collectivize and really put in the time and the effort and the work.
Okay. Our next question on the Take 5 is what turned you on about theater? And in this case, since we're talking about theater and film as a kind of unified whole, almost theater and film, what's something that resonates deeply with you?
Well, you really just hit it. It's the perversity of it, in the sense that the actors and the personnel can go back and forth from one aesthetic to another, from one modality to another, without anyone ever knowing. And, I first sort of thought about it when I used to really savor the fact that, if I cast a musical theater actor in an opera and they sang note perfectly and they did wonderfully and everyone loved them because they could act, nobody asked any questions about their background or whether they had done opera before. And vice versa, when I cast an opera, singer into a musical, no. And so I started talking with them, backstage or at parties or whatever. And I was like, wow, it seems like to me 9 out of 10 opera and musical theater people, they just go back and forth between opera and musical theater, just whatever. They may have 2 resumes, but they go completely fluidly. And that really resonated with something that I felt was wonderful about sort of growing up as an artist in New York City. I got there in 1986, and I just sort of never left until a year or two ago. And as I sort of, learned my way up, learned the ropes, produced stuff, made things happen, it was just wonderful to see, Broadway actor, but submitting for a guerrilla rep show because their agent wouldn't submit them, so they'd submit through Actors Access. Or, thriving commercial career, but they're walking back and forth between doing a commercial for the Milk Council and doing Hamlet at the Cloisters. So like the fact that the true spirit, you know, people who need to see boundaries and who need to see rules, well, we're willing to show them, but that doesn't mean that they're true at all. And so what really turns me on is being able to be in a room full of these wonderful creative artists and know that we not only are going to deliver a great product, but we're going to be able to decide what the product is, all those forms and rules, if people need to see them, we're going to adhere to them perfectly. And no one's even going to ask a question about like, what else, you know, what are we doing? Are they this kind of actor or that kind of actor? And so, you know, conversely, every once in a while, it turns me off to hear people who are a little too jaded, you know, doing casting, and directors who stop doing their own casting really turn me off, because they've lost the truth of what acting, you know, really, really is. And I've given so many actors like a break to just show me what they could do with something that no one ever thought about them for. And they've done so wonderfully. You know, I'm thinking of a guy who came in and he auditioned, and I was like, wow, man, you are hilarious. You have got to play bottom. Like, forget Lysander Demetrius, man. You are bottom. Like, you are bottom. This isn't. He's like, wow. Okay. And then about halfway through the rehearsal process, he was like, you know, I've played both Lysander and Demetrius, but I've never played a comic character in my life, much less bottom. And I'm like, are you not seeing your fellow actors like trying to keep their shit together? Like, you were born for this, man. What are you talking about? And he was like, well, thanks for the opportunity. And I was like, well, wait till you see hundreds of New Yorkers enjoying that opportunity. And certainly he did. And it's, you know.
My brain is gone.
Bye-bye.
The next two questions are kind of interconnected, and you might find that they're two sides of the same coin. And the first one is a time of failure and what it taught you, and the other one's a time of success and what it taught you.
One of the greatest failures of my career happened around 9/11. So, you know, I'm an alcoholic, and I've been sober for now 26 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. One day at a time. But, you know, that's really, in order to stay sober, we're kind of forced to look at ourselves very honestly, really, with, I dare say, humility. But we got to look at what really is going on. And that can be really ugly, you know, when you're an alcoholic. And and I was sober through the episode I'm about to describe, but I wasn't 26 years sober because it was around 9/11. So what happened was I was rehearsing a brilliant play called The Death of King Arthur. And I had taken aside a promising young playwright, and I had said, hey, I want to commission you. Because he had been in, Macbeth. To tell you, yeah, he had played, it was hilarious. He was wonderful. He had a wonderful moment. He played, young Seward was one of the characters that he played. And at one point they were fighting, and his sword broke, which is funny. That's kind of a foreshadowing. His sword broke, and the pommel fell off, and then the blade fell. And he put his hands up to this, and he looked at Macbeth, and he said, can we talk about this? The audience damn near lost their shit. And the audience lost it, you know. And so, of course, they did the last two moves of the choreography and killed him. But it was a big laugh. So I said, I want you to write. He says, well, what do you want me to write? And I said, I want you to write the play about King Arthur that Shakespeare didn't get around to writing. And he was like, oh, is that all? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. And he's like, well, iambic pentameter? And I was like, hell yes. He's like, well, what's the deal? And I was like, well, it wasn't a lot. I was like, I think at the time I could give him $300 to get started. I could give him $300 on opening night, another $300 on closing night. And he said, yes, except I also need to be able to work with actors. As I'm writing the piece, I need to work with actors in a room. And I was like, well, I will rent the rooms. I will give the actors a small honorarium, not much, but what I can. And with one proviso, you must let all those actors know that they are not automatically cast in the show. Right?
Yeah.
That's important. They'll all get a call back. I'll call them all back, but I can't guarantee they'll be in the show. So I thought that was fairly equitable. You know, I was off to a good start, but it did not end well. What happened was somebody blew up the World Trade Center, and I was stuck in Princeton. My first day of work was 9/11. So that was a hell of a first day of work to be teaching Shakespeare at Princeton. I was teaching Shakespearean acting. However, the rehearsals of The Death of King Arthur were halfway through on 9/11. I couldn't get back to New York that day or the next day. We didn't have rehearsal for that night. And then the next night and subsequent nights we rehearsed. We couldn't get below 14th Street because the Army had a line, a cordon. So we rehearsed in Central Park with flashlights, and we just kept at it and we kept at it. And it was really hard. It was really hard. I don't know if I should have said, let's just call it a day, but I really wanted to do the show. And the funny thing is there was a reward at the end, which was that many people who saw the show got in touch with me and said how much they loved, especially the monologue by King Arthur that talked about loss and betrayal and seemed to be just echoing all the feelings everyone was having in 9/11, right? And I'm telling you right now, that was written 6 months before that show, and we didn't change a word because that's theater magic, right?
Yeah.
But, obviously I'm trying to avoid talking about my horrible and utter failure. But it was this. At the end of the day, what happened was about 2 or 3 days before we were opening, we were already doing run-throughs because that's how I am. I do run-throughs. I'm doing run-throughs 2 weeks before we open and really putting the polish on. It's important to me. So we're doing run-throughs. People are just like, people's friends have died. It smells like burning fucking corpses outside. We finally get back down to our rehearsal space. It's just everybody is totally out of it. I am not doing great self-care. That's not an excuse. It was horrible what I did, but I did it. What I did was we were doing some fight choreography and with the whole cast there right before, because we were, fixing the fight choreography and the run-throughs, right? So the guys come up to me who are doing the fight with the fight choreographer, and they get right up on me, and they're like, "These swords are not good enough. These swords are not strong enough. These are show swords. These are not fighting swords." And I know the difference. But they just all three at once. And I remember feeling so trapped. And I didn't say anything to them. I just took one of the swords and I calmly walked over to the corner of the room and I beat the sword to pieces. I just beat it into pieces. So I turned around, dropped the pommel, which is the last piece, and so the entire cast was looking at me with these giant eyes. They all, as one, turned around and left the room and went away. That was it, and I was literally alone in the rehearsal room. I was So the next thing I really remember is being at home and getting a phone call from the guy who played Macbeth, who you saw, who was in that cast, wonderful man. And he said, "Listen, the cast has elected me to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm glad it's you, because we have a pretty good relationship, I think." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, but listen, we're not going to do the show. There's no way we're going to do the show. This is what you did was threatening. We all are terrified of you. We don't want to be in the room with you. It's just we can't do it." And I was like, well, I had presence of mind to say, "Are you saying you won't do the show, or are you saying you won't do the show with me?" And he's like, "I'm listening. What are you talking about?" And I was like, well, the playwright's done some directing, and everyone's already, it's run-throughs. You've already got the directing done. If I suggest that the playwright, who's not in the play either, right? If the playwright completes the directing and runs the show, and I simply am not there anymore, would you guys consider doing the show? So that, I may be wrong, but that way you wouldn't be throwing out all the art we made together just because of my horrible mistake. And he was like, "Well, I'll think about it." And I'm like, "Well, please tell everyone I apologize." And now, of course, at that point, I'm in tears. I'm sobbing. There's tears flying out of my eyes. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I'm sorry. And please beg them to consider doing it without me. So he calls me back, the next morning. He says, "Well, we've decided, you have to agree to not even come into Manhattan," because I was living just outside of New Jersey. He's like, "You really need to not be anywhere near it." And I was like, "You've got my word on that." So they actually did the show without me. And the great failure was really, multivalenced, but it certainly included not taking into account how people were feeling based on the horrible accident, horrible thing that had just happened. It's funny, a lot of us who were around for 9/11 have been talking about how different this crisis is and stuff, but it's still a crisis. And, as a result, how did it improve me? Have I talked about enough about how badly I fucked up? I was a bad fuck up.
Yeah.
Bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I terrified the whole cast. But then, and I've never done anything like that since. I'd certainly not broken anything, and I never did it before either. It was just, man, it was fucked up. Anyway, so what I learned about it was that I need to take into account where people are coming from, and I started a process to learn how to put that into casting and rehearsal procedures in what I've found more and more is a very hostile environment to caring about the basic humanity of the people I'm working with. So over the years, it became a series of rules. There's Sanderson's rules. And the key to these rules is that they are rules for me, that I invite everyone else to also participate in while they are working with me. And one of the main rules is actually rule number 2 is the basic human dignity of all persons shall be respected at all times. And the explication of that is, that means no yelling, certainly not yelling at anyone, no ad hominem attacks. And it means that if this is ever violated, everything stops until there's an apology that's been accepted and the relationship that was distressed has been repaired to both parties' satisfaction. Then we can move forward. So, pretty much the idea of just shutting everything down in order to care for somebody seems alien to the theater environment to me. And I've been fighting to make it a part of every rehearsal process I've done since then. And the rules certainly were handed out to every Macbeth actor and explained and discussed with me personally before they got in to the show, or before we got down to it. But I took it a lot further, and I needed to take it further, and I'm delighted to say that I took it further with Macbeth. With Macbeth, I said it this way. I said, guys, all apologies are already given and already accepted. If you need to stop doing this at any time, just stop. Mm-hmm. Your apology is already accepted. It's all good. Now, the weird thing about this is that I actually, the format that I was working in completely allowed this to be more possible than I could have ever imagined, because, we were in a ways and an actor couldn't go on and they had to go. And I was like, take care of you. That is more important than this. That is absolutely more important than this. And then I was like, wow, what am I going to do now? I was like, I can just reshoot their footage because none of these actors are in the same building or even the same room at the same time. Like, I can literally delete all their lines, put in the lines of the other actor, and the rest of the cast is not harmed by my consideration of this person's personhood, by their needs. So that was really lucky. And it's another reason I want to make another one of these, maybe even try to handle as much of the canon as I can with this aesthetic. It allows the individual's dignity to be honored. And so at the end of the day, it's very gratifying to be working in that way, and to have had actually more than one actor is in Macbeth who was in that production of The Death of King Arthur when I totally lost my shit. But the idea that they would agree to come back and to work with me again, and they have before too, is really gratifying. And I feel like I earned it by going ahead and learning and looking hard at what the hell it was that I did wrong and why, and trying to put in layer after layer after layer after layer to stop that from happening ever again, And luckily with Macbeth, it really paid off, because we are in such a bad crisis again. And, two of the actors had their fathers die from COVID during the shooting. And in both cases, I was like, you got to go. That's what we've been saying. I care more about you as a person than this film. Why is that so weird? But in both cases, the actors were like, nope, I got to do this. One of them actually looked right into this thing and said, this is a balm. And I was like, okay, all right. I said it was up to you and I meant it. So it's not like I'm going to say you can't do this. So I think it informed their performances quite deeply as well.
Okay, this is our last take 5, and this is the one that did we asked you about both the failure and the success. Do you have a different success story, or do you feel like they were intertwined?
Well, I guess if Macbeth is the success, yeah, that can be good. I managed to have all these people be so willing to invest in my vision, about making this film during lockdown, that I guess it is, it counts even better than Ben Brantley reviewing my shit twice. Just being able to do this, is, yeah, I'll take it. That's my biggest. I'll take it as my, hey, if my last project was my biggest success, that's pretty good.
Our final question is always the one that kind of trips people up. So brace yourself, or maybe you'll have like you're already ready. If in like 40 years there's a theater textbook, and in your case, theater film textbook, so you even got a bigger textbook, and there was a rule kids had to study with your name on it. They had to memorize this rule, put it on test. What is that rule?
Oh, there you are. Hello. Yeah, rule number 1 is heroin's bad.
Wow.
And that's what I would have them memorize. Well, the truth is, I think I would amend that. If I could, I would have them memorize all of the rules. I think there's 10 of them. But if I had them to choose one rule, it would be rule number 2. The basic human dignity of all persons shall be respected at all times, period. That's what I would have taught. Rule number 2.
We're going to put both when we put the video on YouTube. You're stuck now. They have to learn both. 1 and 2. It's too late.
Well, if you want me to give you, I can tell you all 10 if you like, because they're very fast, but it's up to you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Rule number 1, heroin is bad. Think about it. It never ends well. Rule number 2, the basic human dignity of all persons shall be respected at all times. A, this includes yourself. B, it also includes if you have to talk to somebody about something that is going to make someone feel bad. When you do, and you will, at least don't add making them feel embarrassed. Talk about big fuck-ups in private. C, also, don't yell at people. Rule number 3, keep the drama on the stage. Rule number 4, I shall not fault an excess of zeal. That's one of my favorite. You know, when that guy just like runs in and does some kind of choice and you're so like, no, never, not, but I can't, but you love it so much and you did it out of love and you did it because you loved it. Yeah, I shall not fault an excess of zeal is important. Rule number 5 is everyone has an artistic voice. That means always being heard, not always being right, including me. Rule number 6, bring a solution. No matter how far-fetched to any problem when bringing attention to a problem. Like when people are like, I don't quite get that, I'll usually say, listen, man, if you're telling me there's a hole in the roof, then the next words out of your mouth could be, and I think we should find a giant who's got a big enough thumb to plug it. I don't need it to be a good answer. I just need to know that you're thinking about answers while you're thinking about problems. That's all. Rule number 7 is no unrehearsed fight choreography.
Yeah.
Right. It's a funny way of saying, safety first, last, and always, but no unrehearsed fight choreography is a good one. It's also kind of an understated way of saying, like, don't get so pissed off at someone that you want to hit them. That's not okay. Rule number 8, the initiator of cut procedure is never questioned. Now, I need to tell you what cut procedure is. It's really fast. Cut procedure is taking this idea of the personhood of the actor so deep into the grain that if an actor is more worried about their own safety, especially in an outdoor production, they're more worried about their own safety than about telling the story, they are to drop character, stand up, and shout "cut" really loud. When we're out in a guerrilla rep show, I'm kind of like the rodeo clown. That's my cue, and I tell the actors, when you call cut, that's my scene, and you don't stop the scene until I say action. I get rid of 9 out of 10 of those problems by looking at the person who's being a problem. It's usually a drunk, and I'll say, "Hey, buddy, we had auditions. Where were you?" And then the whole audience laughs, and the drunk person realizes they're screwing things up, and it's not really funny, and they leave. But I also say there's no way I'm going to ever know what it's like to be a very obvious woman, especially cisgendered woman. I don't know. So things that men can say, also an actor could see somebody with a blade or a piece of broken glass that I can't see. They just stand up and they call cut. We've used this procedure for decades, and never once has the person who called cut ever been questioned about why they did it. We don't have it afterwards where we say, well, is that really a good idea to call cut at that point? Because that was right in the middle of an important scene. None of that shit. That's our calling cut, dealing with what's really happening, make sure we're all safe, and then moving forward is a part of our aesthetic. And that's why the rule needs to be the person who calls cut is never questioned. So I hope that makes sense.
I love that.
Thanks. That one's in the cut procedure is in my book, actually. Rule number 9, no surprises. Surprises are for the audience. We will keep each other well informed and well prepared. We are transparent in every appropriate way possible. When in doubt, if you've been heard, repeat yourself, especially to me. You know, the rule number 10 is the last one. Rule number 10 is do not move the goalposts. Established metrics of success are to be honored. If they are achieved, the time to set new ones is after the recognition and celebration for achieving the set goals. Because I've just seen that ruin a culture in a show so quickly, you know, that they do what's asked for, and then instead of saying, that's great, we did it, look at us, let's take 5 and eat a candy bar or something. You know, it's immediately like, oh, well, we really should try to do this. And we, you know, people are cramming 5 more things in, you know, and it really dovetails with something that's not a rule, but is a habit of mine, which is I always end rehearsal 5 minutes early. And that's trained me to get what I need to get done. It's about training me, right? Because when somebody says that they're in a Gorilla Rep show and I'll meet you at 10:05 down the street, that means at 5 of 10, you can start getting your shoes on and put on your coat so that you're walking out the door at 10 o'clock, right? And you can meet the person. And really, it just says respect about people's time in a way that letting a rehearsal go an hour overtime, 2 hours overtime, just says you're trash, you're a servant, you're nothing, you're here for me, none of which is true, because we're all here for the art. So I guess, yeah, those are my rules.
Yeah, so we should probably spare you. We tell everybody this. Please keep in touch. Email us if you're doing something. Tell us everything you're up to. We'll let you know when we're done the book. And keep you posted on what we write. And we might share some notes about what we wrote about you. So
thank you. Thank you for all of that. It's been a fantastic talk. I really appreciate this. Really, really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
All right,
night.
y'all. Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like what we just did, there's going to be plenty more coming up. Please like, comment, subscribe. Our Venmo is in the description. Please support us if you can. Our cats need the money.